Okay. All right, let's bring this meeting to order. If I could get this meeting started by calling the roll. Ms. Rosales.
Blumenfield.
Blumenfield present.
Hutt.
Here.
Nazarian. Nazarian absent. Lee.
Present.
Rahman. Four members present and a quorum.
Great, thank you so much. We're going to start this meeting as we do. We're going to take public comment. We'll start with people who are signing up for 3 or more items, and then we will start taking up the items. We'll take up the consent items, which I'm going to propose items 1 through 9 on consent, and at that time we'll take up public comment on those items, and then we'll move through the remaining 3 items of the agenda one at a time. We'll listen to staff presentations, take public comment, and vote on the items accordingly. So if you're here for one of those latter items, that's when you'll speak at that point in the meeting. You don't need to speak up front on that. And then general public comment, as we do in this committee, will be at the end of the meeting after we have gone through all of the regular order items. So with that, Mr. Rosales, would you please read the rules of public comment into the record?
Yes, sir. Members of the public wishing to speak on one agenda item only shall have an opportunity to speak for 1 minute. Appellants and applicants will be given an opportunity to speak when their item is called. Each appellant and applicant has a total of 3 minutes to speak. An appellant can choose to have a single representative speak on his or her behalf or divide the 3 minutes among his or her team. Anyone else, including an attorney or project manager wishing to speak on an appellant's behalf who does not do so during this 3-minute period, may offer a minute of public comment whenever the committee chairperson opens the public comment period for the item. Therefore, we expect that appellants and applicants have the respective teams assembled and ready to present at the appropriate times today. Members of the public wishing to speak on more than one item shall state that and shall be allowed to speak for a total of 2 minutes. Failure to submit public comment in a timely manner before the comment period for the item ends results in forfeiture of the opportunity to participate in public comment for the item. As stated by the chair, general public comment will be taken at the end of the meeting. Madam City Attorney, please provide additional guidance on public comment.
When speaking on the agenda items, you must be on topic. Our goal is to get through as many speakers as we can. If you're not speaking on topic, or if we cannot tell whether you are speaking on an agenda item, you will get 1 brief warning from the city attorney or the chair. If you do not immediately get clearly on topic, or if you stray off topic, you will forfeit the rest of your time and we will move on to the next speaker. We will inform you when your time is up.
Great, thank you. And so before we begin with public comment, I'm going to recommend that we have items 1 through 9 on consent with the following recommendations. For items 1, 2, and 3, the recommendation will be to approve the recommendations in the Cultural Heritage Commission reports and approve the nominations. For item 4, it would be to adopt the zone change draft ordinance and environmental findings recommended in the North Valley Area Planning Commission report dated September 16, 2025, subject to conditions of approval and adoption of the project findings, and adopt the recommendation in the Planning Department report transmitted on October 23, 2025 to correct the project site to include the following addresses: 11144 Lawrence Street, 11146 through 11148 Lawrence Street, and 8032 North Fair Avenue. For item 5, recommendations to approve the vesting zone change draft ordinance and environmental findings recommended in the North Valley Area Planning Commission report dated September 17, 2025, subject to the conditions of approval and adoption of project findings. For item 6, it would be to adopt the proposed ordinance attached to the Department of Building and Safety report dated October 17, 2025, and the request of the city attorney to prepare and present the draft ordinance, including the environmental clearance. For item 7, the recommendation is to adopt the 2 draft ordinances attached to the city attorney report dated October 17, determined based on the whole of the administrative record that the draft ordinances are exempt from CEQA under Government Code Section 8698.4A4 and Public Resources Code 21080B4, and the draft ordinances are not a, quote, project, unquote, under the CEQA guidelines section 15378B, and adopt the findings of the City Planning Commission. For item 8, the recommendation will be to approve the recommendations in the City Planning Commission report dated August 18, 2025, and the Planning Department report dated August 18, 2025, as uploaded in the City Council file number 25-1009. And finally, for item 9, it would be to adopt the recommendations in the CLA report dated October 22, 2025, and add the following, quote, amendment, which would be, quote, G, revert $100,000 from the Urban Wall Street, the Ecosystem of Sustainable Communities, and $50,000 from the Legacy Business Program, and transfer it to the SEA Mental Health Program to increase its previous allocation from the $200,000 to $350,000 in Council District 9. Colleagues, if anyone wishes to call one of those items special, just let me know now, or you can let me know after, but before public comment, seeing no comments on it, we will then move first to anyone who wishes to speak to 3 or more items. If there's anyone here for multiple items, please line up on the left side of the chamber. House left, stage right. Okay, let the record reflect that nobody is here to speak on 3 or more items. Okay. Again, everyone will get to speak on the items that they came to speak on. So now we'll move to the consent items, which are items 1 through 9, as I've outlined them. Does anyone here wish to speak to 1 or more?
Mr. Blumenfield?
Yes. We need to vote on that, right?
Yes, but sorry to interrupt you, sir. For
Yeah.
item 12, there's a series of amendments to the motion. Those need to be read into the record so the public is aware prior to public comment.
Public comment on that item, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to wait till we get to that item.
Okay.
So we're right now just handling the consent, and then we'll, unless you think we need to do it before that.
Well, to the extent they may be commenting on it through the multiple items comment.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. So we have a number of, well, I'm putting forward a number of recommendations in 12 that we're going to be, that are part of the discussion. 12 is the item, is SB 79, and it's asking for a report. And the recommendations as outlined, although we are free to add more recommendations or subtract recommendations through that process, but just for extra, I don't think legally required, but extra accountability and transparency, why don't we read those recommendations into the record now prior to moving to additional public comment.
The instructions are as follows.
And these instructions incorporate things that some of my colleagues have brought up, but we'll discuss them when we get to the item, but go ahead.
Instruct the Department of City Planning, with the assistance of the Department of Transportation and other departments as needed, to report by December 1st, 2025 on the following: the definition of, quote, transit-oriented development stop, unquote, detailed maps of the areas where development projects would be allowed under SB 79, including identification of Tier 1 and Tier 2 stops, and for each, whether it is or will be served by heavy rail, very high-frequency commuter rail, light rail, high-frequency commuter rail, or qualifying bus service, and its status, e.g. existing, under construction, funded, in active planning, potential, or no longer under consideration. When official SB 79 maps are expected to be provided to the city, options for implementing SB 79, including proceeding with implementation, developing a transit-oriented development alternative plan, or TODAP, and/or delayed effectuation, including but not limited to the following: the necessary findings, the number of, quote, transit-oriented development stops, unquote, that are anticipated to be analyzed, timelines and deadlines for preparing ordinances to comply with SB 79, submission to and review by the Department of Housing and Community Development, and adoption by the city. Resources needed by the Department of City Planning to implement SB 79, including staffing resources and consultant costs anticipated to be needed by the Department of City Planning to implement SB 79, including potential TODAP or delayed effectuation. Second, instruct the CAO or the City Administrative Officer to report by December 1st, 2025 on options for providing planning and other city departments with personnel and financial sources needed to prepare for implementation of SB 79, and within 30 days provide funding for the capacity modeling for delayed effectuation and local alternative plans. Third, instruct the City Planning Department with the assistance of the Department of Transportation, Housing Department, City Attorney, Chief Legislative Analyst, and other departments as needed to prepare a report by January 5th, 2026, further detailing the impacts of SB 79 with a focus on information needed for the City Council to determine what actions to take before July 1st, 2026, including the following. Detail how SB 79 works in conjunction with density bonus law, including waivers and incentives. Detail how SB 79 would impact the following. Residential units subject to the rent stabilization ordinance, sites located within the coastal zone and sea rise areas, sites located within very high fire hazard severity zones, sites in areas with substandard hillside limited streets, sites located within tsunami zones, sites located in or near evacuation routes, sites that have a designated historic resource either by the city, state, or federal governments, including individual designations and historic districts. Historic preservation overlay zones or national register historic districts, low resource areas, industrial zone sites. Detail for each station the allowable density per acre, height, floor area ratio, and parking requirements. The area included in a very high fire hazard severity zone, sea level rise area, low resource area, or HPOZ, or National Register Historic Zone, historic district. And for HPOZs and NRHDs, the date it was established. Whether the provision of SB 79 that allows findings regarding the absence of a walking path of less than 1 mile applies to barriers that could be removed unilaterally by the city or the relevant transit agencies, such as gates, walls, fences, or temporary closure of pedestrian passageways or tunnels. Options for stations, including in the regional transportation plan that are on transit lines whose preferred alignment has not been determined or for which implementation is speculative, doubtful, or unlikely to occur, including a determination that SB 79 does not apply or transfer of development potential to other station areas. Recommendations on any local implementation options, including priorities for TODAPs or delayed effectuation, including in low resource areas, very high fire severity zones, especially areas with substandard hillside limited streets, HPOZs, quality of transit service, or other criteria. Options for areas without sidewalks or other pedestrian infrastructure, such as street lights or street trees, including the feasibility to require improvements to the public right-of-way, including continuous sidewalks between a parcel and the transit stop, or to prioritize areas with existing pedestrian infrastructure. Details on how the implementation will interface with already adopted and proposed community plans and the citywide Housing Incentive Program, or CHIP. Whether the city can create additional capacity by increasing allowable height or density that is not economically feasible. Detail the applicability of SB 79 to cities neighboring the city of Los Angeles. The next instruction is to instruct the city attorney to consult with and obtain input from the city council prior to commencing any legal action regarding SB 79. Next, instruct the city administrative officer with the assistance of the chief legislative analyst, city planning, the Department of Transportation, Bureau of Sanitation, Bureau of Street Services, Bureau of Engineering, the fire department, the police department, and request the Department of Water and Power to prepare a comprehensive report identifying and assessing the projected impacts of SB 79 density on the city's infrastructure and utility systems, including costs to update, expand, and modernize the city's infrastructure and utility systems to support projected density from SB 79. Costs to maintain, expanded and upgraded infrastructure and utility systems needed to support SB 79 density, enhancements to emergency services, staffing, and resources necessary to support SB 79 density, citywide staffing enhancements necessary to design and deliver an upgraded infrastructure and utility enhancement plan to support new SB 79 density, recommendations for mitigation funding strategies, and any additional policy actions the City Council should consider to mitigate the effects of SB 79. Estimated increase of revenues generated from the reassessment of properties redeveloped with SB 79 projects, and related direct and indirect revenue increases from sales tax, transient or occupancy taxes, utility users taxes, and other general fund revenues. Estimated direct and indirect job creation impacts from projected SB 79 development, estimated impacts to school enrollment from projected SB 79 development, estimated impacts of increases to affordable housing production in high and highest resource areas, options for prioritizing funding for infrastructure and maintenance in the public right-of-way in areas or communities where SB 79 is being implemented or where a TODAP has been adopted that provides for equivalent growth potential within the community where that transit-oriented development stop is located. This would include city-directed spending under the sidewalk repair program. Finally, instruct the Department of City Planning to report in 90 days on the city's plan to meet its Regional Housing Needs Assessment, or RHNA, consistent with housing element and affirmatively furthering fair housing obligations for the 6th and 7th RHNA cycles in the context of providing exemptions and deferrals under SB 79. This should include a capacity modeling exercise to assess maximum zone capacity and realistic capacity in low resource areas and high resource areas near transit, including those studied under the Citywide Housing Incentive Program ordinance, such as transit-oriented incentive areas, opportunity corridors, or opportunity corridor transitional areas to ensure compliance under SB 79 and housing element law.
All right, I know that is a lot. It's a lot of recommendations. You know, don't just take my word that they're all good. Take a look at them, and toward that end, for folks who are in the audience, I'm having my team post not only one copy of it on the board, but they'll have a bunch of copies to hand out, and that'll be the last item we get to, so folks can look that over during the time prior to us taking up item 12, when we'll actually have a discussion about all of this. Councilwoman Rahman, do you have a comment?
I had an amendment for item 12 as well.
You have what?
An amendment for item 12.
Okay, sure, we might as well. Again, I don't think we legally have to do all this before doing our consent items, but we started it, so go ahead. Feel free to read those into the record as well.
Okay, so I think that actually, I'm sorry, I think I got lost a little bit in the words, but your amendment may have incorporated all of the language that I had wanted to add in my amendment. But I did just want to flag that I had wanted to make sure that we were detailing how SB 79 would impact low resource areas in addition to some of the other considerations in the original motion. I wanted to make sure that we were looking at direct and indirect revenue from other kinds of taxes besides property taxes, so including sales taxes, TOT, and other general fund revenues. I wanted to make sure that we were looking at indirect and direct job creation impacts, that we were looking at impacts to school enrollment, that we were looking at impacts to affordable housing production, especially in high and high resource areas. And I really wanted to make sure that, you know, this was a very comprehensive motion, so I want to thank Councilmember Park for putting this forward so quickly after the state passed SB 79 and the governor signed it. But I do think that we are being asked as a city to look at affirmatively furthering fair housing as part of our housing element. And I think we need to be also able to make sure that we're considering how we meet our regional housing needs assessment consistent with AFFH policy and obligations in the context of any changes, deferrals, exemptions, et cetera, that we're making under SB 79. And I believe that language was included there.
It was.
But just wanted to flag that is, I think, really important for us to consider as we move forward. So thank you.
I
All of
appreciate-
that, it is included in what
Appreciate
Deborah
you raising, your team worked with us to make sure we incorporated
Yes,
your
sorry.
Great.
I thought they were two different amendments, but
great
yes.
suggestions that are in. That's partially why it's such a big thing. As I said, we're going to post it on the board so everybody sees all of these recommendations. And of course, this is just the instruction from us to get the department to start reporting back on all of this. We're not actually taking any, creating any implementation ordinances at this moment in time. So that's all a preview for our final exciting item, which is SB 79. We are now going to move to the consent items for public comment, and it's my understanding actually there may be a few folks who are here on item 4. So at this moment in time, I'd like to ask anybody who is here to speak on any of the consent items 1 through 9, including item 4, where I am aware that people have signed up for, to line up on the left side of the chamber, my right, your left, to speak to those items before we take them on consent. And I was informed that there was some speakers that had signed up for item 4, so I want to make it real clear. If you were here for item 4, which was the zone change 17-unit apartment with affordable in District 6, if you're here, please come forward. Or maybe the translator could say that as well in case someone who signed up for it is.
Si hay alguien aquí, el Distrito 4, que quieran hablar sobre el punto número 4, por favor, acuden al podio si se han inscrito para comentario público
Or any 1 through 9.
o cualquier punto 1 a 9.
Okay. Seeing nobody come forward, maybe they realize that since it's on consent, they're going to get what they wanted anyway, and I appreciate that. Public comment on those items is now closed, and we can take up those items as I read in the beginning in terms of the recommendations. So if we could call the roll on items 1 through 9.
Blumenfield.
Blumenfield, aye.
Hutt. Aye. Nazarian absent. Lee.
Aye.
Rahman is absent. Those are 3 ayes, and items 1 through 8 are approved. Number 9 is approved as amended.
Okay. There was multiple amendments in which I read out at the beginning of 1 through 9.
Number 4. Number 4 was approved as amended.
Okay. Okay, that takes us then to item 10. If you would read that into the record.
Item 10 includes a categorical exemption from CEQA and related CEQA findings, a report from the Los Angeles City Planning Commission, and an appeal filed by Eva Nathanson in approving a density bonus affordable housing incentive program determination to permit the construction of a housing development program with the on-menu incentive to permit a 20% reduction in the required open space. And second, in approving a project review. This is for a project in CD5.
Okay. And so folks know, we're going to have the planning department present its report. Then we'll ask the appellant to present their appeal. Then we'll ask the applicant to respond. Then we will open it up to public comment. Then we'll hear from Councilwoman Yaroslavsky or her staff, and then we'll have a committee discussion. So if you're here, appellant or applicant or public, your time will come on this moment, but we start, as we traditionally do, with a brief overview from the department before we get into comments. So I yield the floor to the department.
Good afternoon. My name is Nasha Sedona Jensen with the Department of City Planning. The item before the committee today is an appeal for a density bonus project located at 8251 West Melrose Avenue for the construction, use, and maintenance of a new mixed-use building consisting of 90 dwelling units, with 10 units restricted to very low-income households. On August 6, 2025, the City Planning Commission approved the 90-unit mixed-use building and adopted a Class 32 categorical exemption under case number ENV-2024-3203-CE as the environmental clearance. On August 18, 2025, one appeal was filed by Eva Nathanson, an abutting property owner. The appeal cites that the project did not demonstrate consistency with all applicable general plan policies, that the record lacks substantial evidence that the project will have no significant effects relating to traffic, noise, air, and water quality, and that the project does not qualify for a Class 32 categorical exemption. These points were already raised and addressed during the City Planning Commission hearing and deliberation. Staff responses to the appeal points have been transferred to the council file for council's consideration. Based on the information in the record, staff recommends that the Plum Committee deny the appeal and sustain the original determinations by the City Planning Commission. Staff would also like to clarify that its recommendation in the Planning Department letter to Plum, dated October 22nd, 2025, is inclusive of the density bonus determination with the on-menu incentive. Staff would also like to note that revised findings with new findings on the safety element was included in the transmittal to Plum. That concludes my presentation, and I am available for any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll ask the appellant if they are here and wish to present their appeal. They will have 3 minutes. They can come forward to the podium. Yep. You'll have up to 3 minutes, followed by the applicant, who will have up to 3 minutes.
Excuse
Welcome.
me. I'm Andrew Sachs. I'm the representative of the appellant. Thank you for hearing this appeal. Thank you to Council Member Yaroslavsky for highlighting concerns about groundwater study timing and environmental review. Please review her letter and that from Sarah Tuft, delivered yesterday. Ava, the appellant, can't be here today. She's being honored by the Museum of the Holocaust as she is one of the last remaining survivors. Her family has lived on this property since 1961, as she has owned it since 1988. My wife and I have lived here for a decade and have 2 young kids. We are appealing the city's determination that this project qualifies for a Class 32 CEQA exemption. That exemption only applies when there's no reasonable possibility of significant effects, particularly related to traffic or water quality. But we have substantial evidence of such possibilities. First, traffic. Harper north of Melrose is a hazardous pinch point, worsened by constant illegal parking in red zones and tourist parking for the pink wall. The developer proposes putting the garage entrance right in the middle of that pinch point and a commercial loading zone directly across from our alley gate, our only vehicle access. The additional obstruction of access is an especially critical concern for 84-year-old Ava, who has major health issues, as well as the retirement home at 745 North Harper. We need a real traffic study done before approving something that could make an already hazardous situation worse. Second, groundwater. The applicant's geology and soil study was conducted on September 29, 2025, following approximately 1 inch of rainfall over the preceding 6 months, which understates the true groundwater conditions. We have a recent local catastrophic precedent, the 728 North Sweetser project. Their engineering was based on similar dry season testing, and when excavation occurred after winter rains, they struck the aquifer, triggering a geyser 60 feet high. Years of dewatering, flooding, mold, structural damage, and ongoing illegal runoff into our streets and the Santa Monica Bay. Please see LAMC 62.80 and 64.70. This project caused measurable subsidence evidenced by structural cracks and non-functional misaligned doors in our home and other buildings nearby. Third, water quality. Any dewatering here sends water through storm drains into the Bologna wetlands and the Santa Monica Bay, along with algae that builds up on the street. That is a direct regional impact, and CEQA requires that we prevent that kind of water quality degradation. Those outcomes weren't a fluke. They were foreseeable. And now the city is fully aware of that risk. Approving this project without a proper seasonal groundwater study invites the same outcome and avoidable liability. Ava, my family, and I will not feel safe living here during or after construction if this development proceeds as planned. We urgently request independent groundwater and traffic analyses reviewed by city, county, and state environmental authorities not rubber stamped. Please give me 30 more seconds or a minute. Demolition shall not proceed, should not proceed
You need
until
to
building
finish
plans
up, just-
demonstrate a safe and feasible design that protects residents, aquifer stability, adjacent structures, and coastal water quality. The worst outcome would be demolishing our historic small business-friendly properties, only to be left next to a stalled excavation and an empty lot. We support housing that can be actually built safely without damaging our neighborhood, the aquifer,
I'm gonna
or coastal waters.
have to ask you to
That
finish.
is what CEQA was designed to ensure. We ask you to uphold this appeal, invalidate the Class 32 exemption, and require a full environmental review and impact report. Should this project proceed at any point, we request the developer provide relief measures for us from demolition through construction, including alternate accommodation and meaningful compensation, and add our property as additionally insured and loss payee on their insurance policy and
Okay,
cover
sir.
any deductible for claims made. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll have the applicant come up if they wish to speak, and given that we gave the appellant an extra minute, we will observe equal opportunity, and in this case, you'll get 3 minutes plus 1 additional minute,
Thank you.
just 4 in case anybody needs the math. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, honorable members of the Plum Committee. My name is Jordan Baruchim, the applicant's representative for the project and the owner, Tova LLC and Melrose Harper LLC. On behalf of the applicant and property owner, we respectfully urge the committee to deny the appeal and uphold the August 6, 2025 letter of determination approving this well-vetted community-compatible project. The appeal presents no new or substantive evidence and fails to demonstrate any inconsistency with the city policy, environmental regulations, or technical findings. The appellant makes claims to general plan and policy inconsistencies. Contrary to the appellant's claim, the project was thoroughly reviewed for consistency with all relevant general plan elements, not only the framework and community plan elements as the appellant has highlighted in their appeal, but also the housing, noise, mobility, and conservation elements. These analyses are clearly documented in the letter of determination on pages F through F9 issued on August 6, 2025. None of the departments identified any policy conflicts throughout the rigorous 17-month review process or the several letters of conditions as issued on August 6th. Further, the appellant makes claims to traffic, parking, and access inadequacies. The appellant's traffic concerns do not merit project denial. A full VMT analysis was reviewed and approved by both the Los Angeles Department of Transportation and the Department of City Planning, and both departments confirmed that the project fell below any significant levels of impact. Therefore, the project did not further warrant any traffic assessment. Additionally, the appellant makes claims about the appropriateness of where the project's driveway location is proposed. For those of you that don't know, the project is on a corner on Melrose and Harper. We also have an alley to the rear. We did the responsible thing and not queue any driveway off of Melrose or off of the rear alley. The proposed driveway access is off of Harper, which is the secondary street, farthest away from the street intersection, which is in best practices with Department of Transportation. So there is no driveway proposed to the parking levels within the rear alley area. The appellant further claims noise, air quality, and construction inadequacies. Just to highlight, noise and air quality reports were prepared by Kaja Environmental Services in July 2024 and further revised in May 2025, which confirms the project's impacts are well below any significant threshold, qualifying the project for a Class 32 categorical exemption as an infill development. Additionally, the applicant will voluntarily retain a 24-hour construction monitoring service to ensure community concerns are addressed in real time. Further, contact information will be posted on-site throughout the duration of construction. As you've heard, the appellant claims insufficient groundwater and soils considerations for the site. I just wanted to identify that high groundwater table in this area is a known and common condition. It does not pose an unusual circumstance. The applicant has already voluntarily accepted to condition number 30 of the letter of determination requiring building and safety approval of a detailed geological report before any grading or construction can commence. This standard review process ensures full review of all subsurface and structural calculations and conditions. Lastly, the appellant claims that the project did not study the cumulative or neighborhood impacts. The noise and air quality studies considered other nearby developments and confirmed that cumulative traffic, air, and noise impacts remain below significant levels. The project replaces aging commercial structures with new high-quality housing with accompanying ground floor commercial space, contributing positively to the streetscape and overall neighborhood vitality. In conclusion, the project fully complies with the general plan, CEQA, and LAMC. We respectfully ask the Plum Committee deny the appeal and approve the project as is. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, next I'll ask if there's any members of the public who wish to be heard on this item. Please come forward come to the left side of the chamber, and the officer there will let you through. Anyone else wish to speak, just feel free to line up. Welcome.
Hello, thank you. I am a resident on Sweetser Avenue, which is directly behind the proposed construction site on Harper Avenue at Melrose Avenue. And as previously mentioned, there is a very high water table in this area. The existing drainage in our neighborhood is at an overload already. During COVID, there was at 728, 748 North Sweetser Avenue, the Los Angeles City Planning Department issued a categorical exemption. We now experience flooding every day. There is algae on our street. People fall. I cannot park on that side of the street anymore because it's dangerous for me. I also see throughout the city other new developments that were, during COVID, experiencing the same overflow and drainage issues. For all of these reasons, I thoroughly agree with the appellant that this exemption should be denied. I have pictures as well.
Great, thank you.
Of all the overflow.
If you wish to submit them to the sergeant, you can. He can have
Yes,
them passed
I do.
around.
And this is a person that works at Posh Healthcare, which will be...
Thank you. I have to limit each person to 1 minute.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
And they fell.
Thank you.
And where do I submit these?
You can give the sergeant, we'll take it, and we'll have the next speaker come forward. If you could exit to your right and then...
Mary Monahan, and I'm speaking for the appellant. And I just wanted to say that to this day, since 2018, there has been water rushing down the street on Sweetser. And the proposed building is like right across the alley from this. So I'm sure they're going to also hit an aquifer like the previous building did. And I'm just, concerned for our neighborhood. And I feel that the hydrology and the geology study ought to be done again with a rainy period and an unrainy period, and to make sure that there's not a big problem. There's not a huge geyser coming up in the parking lot right there. And so I hope that you would put some conditions on this, and that more studies need to be done. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much. Next speaker.
Thank you for having us. I'm Ingrid. I live on Harper.
If you could pull the microphone down a little bit,
Yes.
you can restart
My
your
name
time.
is Ingrid. I live on Harper. I'm right next to Ava, who's right next to the alley. We've been told that Harper is a secondary street, but it's not. Everybody uses it. It's very, very busy. It's very crowded. I do not know how the fire department, the police department, the ambulance is going to come in an emergency. There's a senior center. They always need ambulances. I also am very worried about the high water table. I see the water, thousands of gallons rushing down Sweetser. There is mold, there's algae. Somebody's going to fall and get very badly hurt. The alleyway, Ava and her tenant Andrew, there's no way they can get out. There's going to be trucks with all their building materials right there. I do not see how they're going to be able to get out. Tenants will have a very difficult time getting out and going to work. So please, please review this very carefully. It's going to be very damaging for a lot of people. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional speakers on this item? Seeing no additional speakers, then public comment on this item is closed, and we'll ask if there's a representative from Councilwoman Yaroslavsky's office. Please come forward.
Good afternoon, committee. I'm Charles Turner, Director of Capital Projects, Planning and Legal Affairs for Council District 5. I'm here to read a letter from the councilwoman that has also already been submitted to the council file and to the applicant and to the community as well. Before I read the letter, just wanted to thank the staff for all of your work and analysis on the project and from your participation from original hearing to today. Really appreciate it. Also to the community for expressing concerns and for engaging with us throughout the process. Dear Planning and Land Use Committee, I am writing regarding the proposed development at 8251 Melrose Avenue. Our office appreciates the applicant's collaborative approach and their voluntary effort to commission a hydrology report to study groundwater conditions on this site. We understand that this area has a consistently high water table, which has been a known factor influencing design and construction for multiple nearby projects. While the hydrology report provides valuable information, it was conducted during a dry period, and as such, it may not fully reflect conditions that occur following rainfall or during wetter months when groundwater levels tend to rise. We note that the nearby project at 714 North Sweetser Avenue faced similar challenges related to groundwater levels and has resulted in ongoing street flooding caused by their construction intersecting the natural water table. This has also led to hazardous mold and moss growth due to the persistent presence of surface moisture in the affected area. Our office shares the broader concern about ensuring that projects in this vicinity are designed with an understanding of these hydrologic realities. We appreciate that the developer has proactively engaged with these conditions and with city staff in good faith. Continued collaboration between the development team, the city, and the community will be important as the project moves forward, particularly given the unique site characteristics in this area. Thank you for your attention to the matter and for your continued commitment to ensuring the new developments are informed by sound, environmental, and site-specific data. Respectfully, Councilwoman Yaroslavsky. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll move to a committee discussion, and I'll start by just asking the department to respond to some of the concerns that were raised, particularly those about the water and the mold on Sweetser and the flooding, and how have you addressed that or have you addressed that in your report?
So the water discharge that's coming from the nearby development at 728 North Sweetser is a result of operational runoff, not construction-related runoff. It is true that that area does have a high water table. However, prior to the issuance of any building permits, the applicant will have to submit any soils report to the LADBS grading division, and then the grading division will review the applicant's consultant's reports to ensure that the grading and dewatering recommendations are adequate to mitigate construction impacts and any other potential impacts to adjacent properties.
Okay. Colleagues, any additional comments or questions?
Chair, if I may provide a clarification for the purposes of the city clerk. The clarification that the planning department provided was in regards to their report dated October 22nd, 2025. While the letter itself is dated October 22nd, it was transmitted on the 23rd. So for the purposes of the council file, this report is dated October 23rd, 2025.
Okay. Appreciate the clarification. Colleagues, any additional comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll recommend that we deny the appeal filed by Ava Nathanson, Representative Andrew Sachs, and thereby sustain the determination of the Planning Commission relative to 1, approving a density bonus affordable housing incentive program determination to permit the construction of a housing development project on the on-menu incentive to permit a 20% reduction in the required open space. And 2, approving a project review for the properties located at 8251-8271 West Melrose Avenue and 705 through 711 North Harper Avenue, subject to conditions of approval and adoption of revised project findings as recommended by the Planning Department in its communication dated October 23, 2025, and to determine based on the whole of the administrative record that the project is exempt from CEQA pursuant to CEQA guidelines, Section 15332, and no exception to a categorical exemption applies. If we could call the roll.
Blumenfield.
Blumenfield, aye.
Hunt.
Yes.
Nazarian. Nazarian absent. Lee.
Aye.
Rahman.
Yes.
4 ayes, and the appeal is denied.
Okay, thank you. Next, we'll move to item 11, which is...
Councilmember?
Yes.
I just wanted to say I was here. I had thought there was another commenter, so I'd stepped away to the restroom when we voted on the consent items, but I'd like
Yes,
to...
so would you like to add on to the consent item?
I'd like to be recorded as a yes. As long as
Okay.
I'm here, might as well get credit for showing up.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for that. Without objection, we will record Councilwoman Rahman as a yes on the consent items. Okay. Thank you for that reminder, Councilwoman Rahman. I meant to do that when you walked in. So now we'll move to item 11. We're going to ask the Planning Department for comments. We'll then ask if there's any comments by Councilmember McCosker or his staff. Then we'll have, next we'll go to the public. Then we'll have Mr. McCosker and his staff if they have a comment, and then we'll have a committee discussion and make recommendations. So if we can get the Planning Department to step forward for this item.
Item 11 is motion McCosker-Lee relative to preparing an interim control ordinance to prohibit the establishment or expansion of any retail business that permits the sale or on-site use of tobacco or nicotine products near sensitive uses within the geographical boundaries of CD 15.
Okay, do we have anyone from the Planning Department here? No? Okay. We don't, we'll move to the public comment then?
There is somebody here from the Planning
Hello.
Department. Yes.
Shauna Bonson, Deputy Director. You were seeking some, a presentation on it, or this is the ICO that's being introduced, as I understand?
It's being introduced. There may be comments or questions, which will come from the committee, so we'll direct them to you when we get them.
I'll do my best, thank you.
Okay, so then we'll move to members of the public. Is there anyone wish to speak to this item? Come forward. Okay, let the record reflect. There is nobody coming forward on this item, so public comment on this item is closed. Is there any member, representative from Councilmember McCosker who wishes to speak on this item? It's his item. Seeing none, we will move to a committee discussion on this. And I guess I'll get us started on this. I mean, it's this is the item about creating an ICO in one district related to tobacco retail licenses near sensitive uses. And I'm no friend to the tobacco industry by any means. I've always been for different restrictions. But I understand smoke shops can present a problem in Council District 15 and in all of our districts. However, many of these shops are selling products that are already illegal, such as flavored tobacco. And if the issue is about going after illegal things, we should focus on that, personally. I'd like to understand better whether this is a regulatory issue, the city allowing something that should be prohibited, or an enforcement issue, which is the city failing to enforce restrictions on sale of flavored tobacco or kratom or sales of advertising directed to minors. You know, what is the problem that we are solving? And if we don't enforce the rules that exist, I don't know how more rules will necessarily create a solution. In addition, we have a planning department that's incredibly short-staffed. The committee and the council have recently approved a series of motions asking planning to explore a range of policies aimed at addressing our housing crisis, the challenges facing local restaurants, to prepare for the 2028 games, and so much more. And the question is, what is going to be sidelined? if we adopt this motion. Currently, tobacco retailers' permits are issued administratively by the Department of Finance. How much work and expense will be required to create a ban on tobacco nicotine sales near sensitive uses? And so that's, there's some questions I'm going to want to see, and I'm putting them into the record now, answered when this comes back. When the report comes back, in addition to the items included in the motion, I'd like to know a couple of things. What is unique about the 15th Council District regarding tobacco or nicotine sales? Because in order for us to do an ICO for one district, there has to be something unique about that district that is different from the rest of the city. I don't know what that is, but I want to, I don't want to slow this motion, this report down, but that needs to be a question that is addressed if we are going to move forward with an ICO for one district. How a buffer zone around sensitive uses will be applied and enforced. We can't just put things on the books that are never enforced, because that diminishes the power of all of our laws. And so that needs to be answered as well when this comes back. How the Department of Finance will determine whether an applicant is within a buffer zone or whether a business is being expanded. Obviously, when we're dealing with this, there's quite this is taking in everything. This is a CVS that sells cigarettes. This is a grocery store, potentially in a food desert, that's selling tobacco. There is probably a way to deal with that, but these are questions that need to be addressed. The resources needed to develop, implement, and enforce a ban on tobacco and nicotine sales near sensitive uses. And what is the immediate threat? The other thing, if we're going to do it as an ICO, as opposed to going through the regular process, we need to determine what is the immediate threat to public health, safety, or welfare, such that tobacco regulations cannot be amended through the normal code and amendment process. Not saying that it can't be, or that there's not something different, but these are things that have to be identified in the report. So I'm kind of putting all those things out there, and I don't know if the department feels like they can address that in the report, or you'll just want to take that back for when you do it, or if you have or if anyone else has any comments on this.
Yes,
Councilwoman Rahman.
I just had a comment or a question here in response to your comment. I agree with the concerns that you raised about an ICO and how you would have an ICO that was applicable to one council district, and also the justification for the urgency behind an ICO, and just wondered if you were planning to move this forward. The motion asks to create an ICO and to come back with a report. Would you be bifurcating those two requests? And because I would just say that for all the reasons that you mentioned already, I'm uncomfortable with requesting the department to draft another ICO on this issue before understanding what is actually what exactly are the tools that we have to address the very real challenges that I'm sure are being felt by the community.
Well, I'm comfortable to ask them to bring back a report before we do the ICO, but I'll ask this committee how we feel. I don't want to slow things down for our colleague, but I do think these are important things to get determined, and so if you're comfortable with that, and my colleagues are comfortable with that, we can move forward on getting a report for those things, and then looking at the ICO once those questions have been adequately answered. Did you have a comment or question?
Haku Solomon Carey for the record. I think those are all valid questions, and happy to provide the report back for further deliberation before the ICO is instructed.
Okay. Colleagues, any other comments or questions? Okay, so then the motion will be to move forward requesting a report, including the five specific questions that I asked, and other important things that we will need to know that are the precursor to doing this ICO. Whatever those things are, because I don't claim to be the expert in ICOs, but I know it's not as simple as or as straightforward as just amending the process. So, seeing no other comments or questions, we can call the roll.
Blumenfield.
Blumenfield, aye.
Hutt.
Yes.
Nazarian absent. Lee.
Aye.
Rahman.
And so, sorry, we're just moving forward on the recommendation to do a report.
Yes.
Okay, yes.
So for the clerk, for her purposes, for the report, it should be to approve it as amended and to request a report from city planning prior to proceeding with the ICO.
Yes, thank you for the clarification.
So those are 4 ayes, and the motion is approved as amended.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. And that takes us to our last item, which you've all been waiting for, which is the discussion on SB 79. And I know we'll have a report on that. Look, I'll get us started while we're waiting for staff to come up. This is SB 79 passed, as we all know. It's very controversial. A lot of folks are concerned about the impact. This council obviously voted against, as a body, voted against SB 79. But of course, the legislature went ahead with it anyway, and the governor did sign it. So the question is, how are we going to implement it? It is now, we're not going to relitigate it, but we have to figure out what is our strategy. It's a complicated bill, and before we take any actions, we need a lot more information about what the impacts will be. This bill allows a lot of density around transit stops, and some of those sites may not make the most sense for 85-foot tall, dense buildings. We need the department to help us understand where those sites are. Another huge concern, but out of our control, is the SCAG maps. We need those SCAG maps to have the most accurate data in terms of station locations. And right now, the city is making assumptions without the benefit of those SCAG maps. As I mentioned earlier, I worked with colleagues here to develop a comprehensive, well, I don't want to say it's comprehensive, a fairly comprehensive list of instructions, which we have already read into the record, and we have posted and handed out, so everybody who's interested has a copy of those. If you don't, raise your hand and my staff will give them to you. That will get us a lot more information, and those are just a lot of questions. But we'll start with there. Obviously, we're not expecting you to have answers to the report now, because this is merely the motion to get those answers, but we want to give you a chance to say what you need to say. If there are particular answers you have already, you're welcome to raise them, or if you have questions about our questions, please put those forward as well. The floor is yours.
Blair Smith, Senior City Planner. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I think you've outlined the challenges ahead of us well. We have very limited time for the implementation of SB 79. It will become effective in July of next year in 2026. Before the bill's effectiveness, SCAG is required to produce maps, which requires collaboration with the Department of Housing and Community Development at the state, in addition to our local transit agencies like Metro and Los Angeles DOT. In addition to that, there are some local options we have. The way I like to think about it is, for SB 79, there are 3 sort of buckets of choices the city has before us. We can choose to allow SB 79 to take effect and offer the full development incentives in the bill, either citywide or at a station area. We can choose to pursue delayed effectuation on certain sites, stations, and areas of the city. Those include low resource areas, fire-prone areas, locally designated historic resources, areas with 1-foot sea level rise, or areas where we have a lot of transit-based development today. The areas that are most affected by the bill are those areas which are in high or moderate opportunity TCAC areas and which have less development potential today. So a way to think about that is our R1, our single-family zoning, our R2 with duplex zoning, and our low-density multifamily development zoning. In those areas, whether that be in July or by 2030, increases in density is going to be required. That is a fact under the assumptions of the adoption of the bill. So what is before council as a decision is the how and the when. And there is one more option I forgot to outline, which is we also do have a choice to pursue a local alternative plan, which allows us to, within limitations, adjust some of the capacity within certain stations, provided that we as a city maintain certain capacity across the city and on certain site levels. As we're pursuing that and other options, we're also guided by, as Councilmember Roman noted, certain provisions in our fair housing policies and also by our general plan. So things like the housing element as to how we direct growth. We're excited for the opportunity to report back on this and all of the constraints in front of us. We have a big task ahead. I would say that the first task we have is to determine, where the stations are that are going to be eligible. That's predicated on SCAG. The second task is really to determine what is 79 capacity and how does that relate to what we have currently on the ground. That's going to require the development of the model, and in our report back, we'll speak to the needs to do that as a department.
Thank you. And before we move to committee discussion, we need to open up public comment. So if anyone is here from the public who came to speak on this item or who wishes to speak on this item, please feel free to line up on the left side of the chamber. You get 1 minute each. If the line is long, you can stay seated until it gets a little shorter. We'll get through everybody who wishes to speak on this, but I don't want anyone to feel like they have to stand the whole time. So we will take people in whatever order they come up. And again, great. Welcome. And with 1 minute each, please state your name and your comments. Welcome.
Thank you. Members of the committee, my name is Bobby Garrity. I'm a downtown resident, and I'm here because we are in a dire housing crisis. We need many more homes, and we need them quickly. You can increase housing supply in 2 ways: sprawling over more land or densifying our existing land. But LA has run out of land to sprawl into, so densifying is our only choice. SB 79 densifies the ideal places, our transit cores. It's a great step forward, but it's not far enough. So as we implement SB 79, we must not just meet, but exceed those density levels, do so without delay or asterisks, and also upzone those areas not impacted by SB 79. We must do all of these and more if we are to have any chance at solving our housing crisis. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
Good afternoon. My name is Scott Epstein. I am the Director of Policy and Research with Abundant Housing LA, which is a sponsor of SB 79. SB 79 has enormous opportunity to yield benefits to the city in the form of much-needed housing, increased transit ridership, reduced carbon emissions, increased revenues, and more. The law gives cities substantial flexibility around local implementation, and it's essential that we get the details right. In particular, we need to make sure that SB 79 is implemented in a way that affirmatively furthers fair housing by opening up transit-rich, high-opportunity neighborhoods to more housing. Please support Councilmember Rahman's excellent motion to center AFFH in city planning's analysis. Moving forward, we urge the council to not defer implementation in high-resource and single-family zoned areas, as more housing in those geographies offers us the best opportunity to further housing equity while limiting displacement. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon.
Mi nombre es Esmeralda Negrete,
My name is Esmeralda Negrete
de Colectivo Poder Comunitario.
of Colectivo Poder Comunitario.
Estoy aquí para hablar del punto 12 y comentario general.
I'm here to speak on item 12 and general public comment.
Y estoy aquí también para exigir con fuerza y urgencia que se ponga en pausa la implementación de la SB 79 en nuestras comunidades de bajos recursos.
I'm here to ask with strength and to urge you that we put on pause the implementation of SB 79 in our communities of
Hasta
lower
que se
resources.
apruebe, hasta que se aprueben protecciones reales para los inquilinos.
Until real protections are afforded to renters.
Sabemos que esta ley se va a implementar, pero no podemos esperar más.
We know this law will be implemented, but we cannot wait any longer.
Necesitamos tiempo para asegurarnos de que las familias que ya vivimos aquí no seamos echadas de nuestros hogares.
We need time to ensure that the families currently residing here are not evicted from our homes.
En nombre de nuevos proyectos que no nos benefician.
In the name of new projects that don't benefit us.
La SB 79 permite construir viviendas cerca de estaciones de tren o metro,
SB 79 allows the construction of housing along metro stations.
pero también pone en peligro las casas, los dúplex y apartamentos con control de renta.
But it also endangers homes, duplex, and rental properties that have rent control.
Estos son hogares donde vivimos personas que ya luchamos cada día por tener estabilidad.
These are places where residents live where we are already fighting every day for stability.
Gracias.
Muchas
Thank you.
gracias. Next speaker.
Hello, buenas tardes.
Hello, good afternoon.
Mi nombre es Antonio Martínez y soy miembro del colectivo Poder Comunitario.
My name is Antonio Martinez, and I am a member of Colectivo Poder Comunitario.
Y estoy aquí para pedir que se ponga en pausa la implementación de la SB 79 en nuestras comunidades.
I'm here to ask for the pause of the implementation of SB 79 in our communities.
De bajos recursos hasta que se aprueben protecciones fuertes para los inquilinos.
Until further protections for renters are approved.
Sabemos que esta ley se va a implementar, pero pedimos tiempo.
We know this law will be implemented, but we are asking for more time.
Tiempo para asegurar que las familias que ya viven aquí no sean desplazadas.
Time to ensure that existing families that already live here are not displaced.
Por nuevas construcciones, la SB 79 permite construir viviendas a media milla de estaciones de tren o metro.
Are not displaced by existing residents. SB 79 allows the construction of metro stations near these communities.
Pero también pone en riesgo casas y dúplex bajo control de renta.
But it also puts at risk houses and duplex under rent control
que podrían ser demolidos para dar paso a proyectos nuevos.
that could be demolished for new projects.
Estamos a favor de más vivienda accesible,
We are in favor of more accessible housing,
pero queremos que se construya también en áreas de altos recursos.
but we also want them built in areas of higher resources.
No solo en nuestros vecindarios. Queremos equidad en la planeación urbana.
Not only in our neighborhoods, we want fairness and equity in urban development.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Muy buenas tardes, mi nombre es Eva García.
Good afternoon, my name is Eva Garcia.
Soy organizadora con Colectivo Poder Comunitario.
I'm a member of Colectivo Comunitario.
Y también vengo a pedirles que le pongan una pausa a la SB 79.
I'm also here to ask for the pause of SB 79.
Ya que con esta ley los más perjudicados serían nuestras comunidades más sublimes.
With this law, the communities, our low-income communities would be the most affected.
Necesitamos más vivienda, sí, claro.
Of course we need more housing.
Pero no que lastime a nuestras comunidades desalojando a las unidades de 2 departamentos.
But not if it's to the threat of our units that are of low income or 2 rooms.
Creo que nuestra comunidad también tiene la necesidad de que construyan la vivienda en áreas de ricos.
I think that we also have the right to ask that this housing is built also in wealthy neighborhoods.
Donde viva también nuestra comunidad en una vivienda asequible.
We also want to have fair and equitable housing.
Porque lo merece.
Because we deserve it.
Pero también esto de la SB 79 afectará mucho a nuestras comunidades de bajos ingresos y serán desplazadas.
But also this SB 79 business will affect our community of lower income, and these communities will be displaced.
Es importante darle una pausa y también les pido que por favor le tomen importancia a lo de la ley Larzo, ya que esa protección podría ayudar también a nuestros inquilinos. Gracias.
We ask that you put this on pause and also give importance to LASO because this will also affect our communities. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Marcia Ayala. I am a CD10 resident, and I'm giving comment on behalf of the ACTA LA Coalition. Through CHIP and now SB 79, the city has several opportunities to shape local development, especially the desperately needed affordable units in this city. We urge the city to prioritize equity and affordability through a careful local implementation of SB 79. Critical in this local implementation is allowing more time in low-resource neighborhoods and neighborhoods that are now covered under the CHIP program. The CHIP ordinance requires higher percentages of affordability and deeper affordability levels that meet the needs of low-income residents in many areas. The city should require developers to be maximizing affordability, especially in vulnerable areas, and fully utilizing the CHIP program is the best way to do so now. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Jed Liano, Senior Policy Advisor, Intercity Law Center. We are Skid Row's pro bono firm representing the poorest of the poor, often working to address their housing stability issues. We welcome SB 79 implementation that increases housing supply for Angelenos facing housing instability. And as you plan for this implementation, we urge you to consider supporting the amendments made today that make central affirmatively furthering fair housing, using this new law to not only create more homes for our residents, but also as a means to undo the historic patterns of segregation of people of color and lower incomes from our most exclusive and high-resource areas. Please make good on our legal and moral obligation to affirmatively further fair housing by not deferring or exempting any high-resource single-family parcels from SB 79 unless they are located in very high fire hazard severity zones or vulnerable to 1 foot of sea level rise. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Maria, and I'm with SAGE. SB 79 is probably one of the most significant housing legislation signed into law, and we need to ensure that it is implemented in a way that will affirmatively further fair housing. SAGE, as a member of Act LA, advocated for the bill to include equitable provisions, and that minimizes displacement, especially of RSO units and lower income communities. We loaded the bases, and now it's your committee's turn to get it to home run. High and highest resource neighborhoods near transit are prime places to build multifamily housing. We are asking for delayed implementation in lower resource and moderate resource areas because these communities have been deeply impacted by demolitions of development, and we need time to ensure these communities are made aware of impacts of the policy. We hope to work together to pass an ordinance that is centered around equitable development and that truly creates the highest amount of affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker. Welcome.
Hello there. My name is Charlene Moyer. I live in Council District 9, zip code 90011, and I'm here today to express concerns as to how SB 79 may affect the senior residents of my district. We have seniors who've been living and raising families in the same homes for decades, both renters and homeowners. We have senior landlords who have senior tenants, all on fixed incomes. Some solo, some couples who are on their own. How will all of this affect us as seniors? I remember a friend of my parents who had to leave her home because of the USC expansion, and it just broke her heart. She never recovered from it. I'm asking folks to be mindful of decisions made because of this bill. Not all bills passed are good for everyone, everywhere, right? So we ask for time and thoughtfulness to figure it out. And we have a few metro lines that run through our neck of the woods, so we will be affected. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon, council members. Mahdi Menji with Intercity Law Center. We serve folks who are homeless and risk of homelessness throughout LA County. We strongly support the CHIP ordinance enacted at the start of this year, but continue to be concerned that single-family areas were excluded. Focusing development exclusively on existing multi-family areas will continue to displace low-income Angelenos. SB 79 allows us to reconsider this issue by allowing affordable and mixed-income housing in high-resource single-family areas and affirmatively furthering fair housing. We oppose deferring any of these areas outside of very high fire severity zones and areas that are vulnerable to sea level rise. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, folks. My name is Antonio with Strategic Actions for a Just Economy and CD9 resident. I stand here alongside folks who have already mentioned the need to delay SB 79 in working class neighborhoods. We must first continue working together to establish strong tenant protections and mitigate the economic impact and displacement of residents in working class homes and neighborhoods, especially more than ever with the federal violence seen across working class neighborhoods and the city. Second, create a pathway for higher resource neighborhoods to develop their fair share of market rate and deeply affordable multifamily housing, not just put the weight on burden working class neighborhoods. I am open to the idea of building homes near transit to create accessible transportation, but not at the cost of displacing long-standing residents, especially without much to fall back on. Again, please delay SB 79 implementation until we can collectively find an equitable implementation pathway. Listen to the residents, they have the valuable solutions. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lisbeth. I reside in City District 9, and I'm a member at SAGE. I'm here in regards to SB 7, and when we refer to the implementation of SB 7, we want to reinforce the consideration in areas affected for low-income and displaced risk areas to give them the time and find access renter program resources, including CHIP and RPO, the Citywide Housing Incentive Program, and the Renter Protection Ordinance, so that residents can continue to stay in their neighborhoods. Thank you very much for your time.
Good afternoon, members of the committee and staff. I appreciate the opportunity to testify today. My name is Corey Alt. I'm a renter in Little Tokyo. Speaking to the motion before us, I appreciate the need for assessment of the impacts of SB 79 that may be challenging for this body, our city planning department, and other city agencies. There are many concerns to work through in the coming months. I heard the list earlier in this meeting, and I'm excited to see the report that this motion will produce, but I hope the council will direct its efforts in a balanced way. In addition to any negative impacts of this legislation, I ask the report commissioned by this body include analysis of the positive impacts as well, including increased tax revenue, efficiency gains in the provision of city services, increased affordability for renters like me, and other positive impacts. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the Plum Committee. My name is Allie Saperman, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Housing Action Coalition. We urge the City of Los Angeles to fully and faithfully implement SB 79. This law is a vital opportunity to build more homes near transit, reduce emissions, and advance fair housing. Los Angeles should embrace SB 79 as a cornerstone of its housing element and climate action commitments, not as a threat to manage. Implementation must include high-resource neighborhoods, including single-family areas near major transit stops, while providing targeted tenant protections where genuine displacement risks exist. We ask the committee to move forward in a good faith and avoid delays or unnecessary carve-outs that would undermine the law's intent. Let's make Los Angeles a leader in equitable, climate-aligned housing policy. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no more speakers on the queue on this, is anyone else here who wishes to speak to this item? Seeing no one, public comment on this item is closed, and we'll move to committee discussion, and we'll start with Councilwoman Hutt.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I have a couple of things. The motion asks for details on how SB 79 impacts sites with designated HPOZs and other protected categories in our communities. But my questions are this. Can you provide information or protections to designate that historic resources and districts are protected from demolition? And what about incompatible development due to SB 79?
Blair Smith. Current procedures in place for historic resources would not be modified by any of the three implementation options I outlined earlier. So if demolition is proposed on a historic resource, whether that be an HCM or HPOZ or even something on the California National Register, they would still be subject to the California Environmental Quality Act and any applicable planning review process. In terms of your second question, would you mind repeating that for me?
What specific legal planning mechanisms Can the city implement under this new law to provide protections to designate historic resources and districts from demolition or incompatible development?
Yeah, incompatible development, that's what it was. In terms of incompatible development, the answer to your question varies depending on which of the three options is pursued. So if SB 79 is to go into effect and the full bill incentives are available, a project is able to seek deviations from standards which preclude their ability to build the building volume permitted under SB 79. So in a historic area, if there was a height limit or a transitional height limit, something that would reduce the building volume, those may not be enforceable. If we were to delay effectuation, SB 79 wouldn't apply, so you could continue to use local standards. And in a local alt plan, there are very specific limitations for historic resources. So within a station area, if we're thinking about it as a bubble, only 10% of that bubble can be exempted for being a historic resource. So if a historic district or an HCM exceeds that 10%, we would be required to increase capacity on some sites in those historic areas. For non-contributing properties or a non-historic building, we would also be required to increase capacity once that 10% is exceeded. And we could, in that local alt plan, apply development standards, but we would be increasing what is possible there. So it would look bigger than what is there today.
Okay, I have another question. How will the report detail the interconnection between SB 79 and the CHIP program? I think that's what so many people in the audience were talking about. Will we be able to prioritize our locally adopted plans in any phase-in or local alternative strategies to maintain some control over the development character?
Yes, what you're speaking to is local options. So if we were to pursue local options, we could defer to rules we have in place, like our CHIP ordinance, and allow those, in areas where we have enough development potential through our CHIP ordinance, we could hit what I call the pause button, we could delay effectuation, and then continue to receive projects as we would, receive them today. In delayed effectuation, in a local alt plan, that could look a number of different ways. That could be a local affordable housing incentive program through a community plan. It could be, that could include base and bonus systems like CHIP does. It could be a citywide initiative like CHIP. It could look a number of different ways.
Thank you, that's all, Mr. Chair. Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Well, if I could just add to it, thank you, Councilmember. When we, and keeping in mind, and we'll detail this in the report that comes back to you, but in the local alternative plans, there are a lot of limitations on what we can't do. We'll be able to do. So you're not going to have all the full tools available to you in the local alternative plans. You may or may not be able to defer all of the areas for delayed effectuation and the areas that you do local alternative plan, although you may be able to customize some of the rules. There's some things, there's clear limitations on that. So kind of getting to both of your questions about how do you deal with potential incompatible development, as well as the ability to do that. There will be limitations, and we'll talk about that in the report back.
Thank you. That's all, Mr. Chair. Okay. Thank you.
Colleagues, additional comments or questions? Mr. Lee?
So, I think most of what I'm concerned about has been put forth in these motions. But you're saying that, do you know what was the number of population of cities that were exempted from SB 79?
It's not a population threshold, it's an infrastructural threshold. So certain counties that have less than 15 stations, I believe, we might need to fact check that, are not eligible. So there are some counties in the state that are not eligible. In terms of population thresholds, cities that have a population under 35,000 receive only quarter-mile incentives. They don't receive a half-mile incentive. So their buffer is smaller. Still receive incentives, but it's a smaller area. So there may be instances where we have a neighboring city that has a quarter-mile buffer and we have a half-mile buffer.
Okay.
Because we're a large city.
To have that change, were they required to have a housing element in place?
Everyone is required to have a housing
Well, I know that, but there are some that are choosing not to. that are choosing not to build. So
I don't think that was a requirement for going to a court. It was across the board. So if you're 35,000 or fewer population, you automatically go. And if you're in one of the qualifying counties, and you're not a county, because counties are deferred, but they will actually be employed later. Instead of a half mile, you have a quarter mile.
Can you repeat?
I said there's not really a qualification to go from a half mile to quarter mile in terms of it's just purely a population cutoff.
Okay.
So if you don't have, so yeah, be the same.
I should also add that unincorporated counties, like LA County,
Right.
have an automatic deferral in implementation, so the bill won't be effective in LA County until the next housing element cycle.
Okay.
So, and we share station areas with adjacent cities as well as the county. So what you will see is station areas where we would potentially have ours go into effect July 1st, that we share with the county, something about 18 stations, is it, that we share with the county?
Around there, yeah.
Around 18 stations we share with the county, so that would go into effect on the city side, but not on the county side. And then we share station areas with population under 35,000, such as West Hollywood and Beverly Hills, and maybe city of San Fernando, I can't remember. And on our portion, the radius will look like a half mile, and within their area will be a quarter mile.
Okay. And just so I understand when I'm explaining to my constituents, you're saying there's a local component that we can use our housing element to somehow, I don't know what the right word is, but to limit the amount of their ability, if we have it in place, if I have a high resource area, we've put something in place, we know that we have to build these homes, we know we have to reach, our RHNA numbers. If we already have that in place, you said there was some type of exemption?
Stations where we have a lot of existing development potential, as enabled through CHIP and other programs, may be eligible for delayed effectuation, which means we can pause SB 79 until approximately 2030, at which point either SB 79 would turn on or a local alternative plan would be needed. One thing to just be aware of, I mentioned it briefly, in most station areas in our city, some level of rezoning or increasing of capacity will be required across the city.
Of course.
And it's a matter of whether that occurs, in July this year when SB 79 turns on, or when a local alt plan is adopted, or in 2030 when delayed effectuation expires. And that is factually going to happen or be needed, particularly on those R1, R2, and low-density RD, in some instances R3 sites.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Colleagues, additional comments or questions? And then for, you're talking about county and city, what about the hybrid, San Francisco type places, which are counties/cities?
It applies to R1, I believe it applies to R1 city county. It was just unincorporated is how it was written. I believe state law always says city/county to incorporate San Francisco.
Got it. So they're not.
It's, yeah.
Slipping out of this.
They're not. They're not. And they are not. It does apply to San Francisco.
Okay. We have a lot of questions that are being, that we put forward. This is really to start that dialogue. Any additional comments or questions? Otherwise, we can move forward on this, which is basically asking for a report with a whole lot of questions that we've put forward. Councilman Hutt, did you have? No. So with that, let's call the roll.
Blumenfield.
Blumenfield, aye.
Hutt.
Yeah.
Nazarian absent. Lee.
Aye.
Rahman.
Yes.
4 ayes, and this motion is approved as amended.
Great. That was our last item, correct? Now we can move to general public comment. Okay, now we will move, if anyone is here for general public comment on an item that's not on our agenda but is within jurisdiction of the Plum Committee, you may come forward now. Again, this is for general public comment. You get 1 minute. Talk about anything that might come before the Plum Committee that's not on our actual agenda. Welcome.
Thank you, Council Member. Good afternoon. My name is Pamela Agustin. I am with the Eastside Leads Coalition. We are a member of the Keep LA House Coalition. And I'm here because, well, today you talked about issues that impacted tenants. But unfortunately, there's an issue that we've consistently come before this building, before this body and other bodies of the council, to let you know about LARSO and the very important changes of LARSO that our very broad coalition has been advocating for. Unfortunately, we haven't heard from all 5 offices that you will be attending our town hall tomorrow. So on behalf of the Keep LA House Coalition, the Federation of Labor Allies, the tenants and the residents, I want to make sure that I leave you with each of you with an invitation to our town hall being held tomorrow via Zoom. We are still waiting. We've made multiple calls and sent multiple emails. It would be great to have you or your reps there tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, are there any additional members of the public here for public comment? Seeing none, we confirm that clears the desk. Okay, colleagues, this meeting is hereby adjourned.